Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning back in. I'm sitting in the boat doing a little prep work, getting ready for an outing I'm gonna do here shortly. And one of the baits I'm gonna be using is a jig like this Luke Clausen Compact Pitch and Jig by Dirty Jigs. One of my absolute favorite jigs. It's a really versatile bait that works in clear water, dirty water. You can pitch it around wood, around weeds. It really is a very versatile bait, and it's a smaller size jig, so it's a good compact bait that catches smallmouth, spotted bass, largemouth, really gets a lot of bites, so I'd recommend it. But what I want to talk about today is how I rig my jig, or what I do to it right out of the package. It's a question that I get almost every time I do a jig video. People want to know, do I fish the jig right out of the package or do I alter it in any means? Now, you definitely can fish it right out of the package. It is very much ready to go. But I can tell you, in talking with the owners of Dirty Jigs, that they leave it in more of a stock fashion so that you can alter it how you want. Some people like it right out of the package. Some people like to trim the weed guard. Some people like to trim the skirt. And if they went ahead and did it the exact way they wanted to, they'd only be appealing to a small percentage of the market. And that's one thing that's across the board with jigs. Most jig companies will leave it in a very much a stock manner. So what I mean by stock is the full-size weed guard, full-size skirt, and then anything else you want to do to it, you're going to have to do to it by yourself. But they do that so that, one person can do it the way they want to, another person can do it the way they want to, another person may use it right out of the package. But the point is, they leave it as a much more stock, ready to go jig that has not been altered, so that the people who want to alter it can alter it, and they're not leaving anybody out of the marketplace. So my answer is yes, I do alter the bait. I do a handful of things to it. So I'm going to show you what I do. So this is a brand new jig. I'm just opening it up right now. By the way, this is one of my absolute favorite colors. This is Okeechobee 420. Let's see if we can get a good picture of it. It's got black material with blue flake and green pumpkin with blue flake. It's a really good grass bait, really good dirty water bait, but at the same time, it's a good bait for clear water as well. It's a really good jig. It's one of my absolute favorite colors by Dirty Jigs. Highly recommend it. Okeechobee 420. So, in this case, you can see that this jig has a full weed guard, full skirt, double-sided strand, so it's coming out the top and out the bottom of the jig, so it's a full tab of skirt material. The first thing I like to do to my jigs is look at my weed guard length. So in this case, you can see that the weed guard is sticking over the hook point by probably 3/8 of an inch. To me, that's too long. So I'll take my scissors and I will spread that out a little bit, like so. And I'm gonna cut about 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch. I wanna have about 1/4 inch overhanging my hook. All right, so you can see I've trimmed that down pretty significantly. The next thing I'm going to do is, depending on the cover that I'm fishing, I'm going to thin the weed guard out. So if I'm fishing heavy, thick wood, I might leave this the way it is. If I'm just fishing isolated laydowns or stumps or rocks, I'm going to trim this down because I don't need it to be as weedless as I would be if I was fishing like through heavy bushes or just things that are really going to get to the hook. So in this case, I'm going to be taking it out. I'm going to be fishing overhanging branches, docks, and some isolated trees. Not big trees, more of like pole timber that's, worn away. So I'm going to trim some of my skirt material. Now there's discussion as to where to take it from. Some people say to take it off the top, some people say to take it off the bottom. I like to take it off the bottom, because if I take it from the underside, what's going to happen is I'm going to have those bristles underneath that are still in the hole are going to give it just a little bit extra strength, but I'm going to get rid of probably about a third. I'd say about a third of the actual strands of weed guard. And I cut them off. Let's see if we can see that. I cut them off at the bottom with scissors. Now, I know some of you are going to say, just grab your pliers and pull them out. You can do that. Here's the issue with that. One, occasionally the whole weed guard will come out, and then you've just made it not weedless. And two, if you pull some out, you're going to leave a gap in there, and at some point that weed guard probably will pull out. So you can do it. It works just fine. In my opinion, there's no reason to remove it completely. You can cut it right at the base. And like I said, I actually like how those weed guards that are at the bottom still, let's see if you can see those. See, there's still a few sticking up there. That's going to give a little bit more strength to these top ones. So even though I removed about a third, I'm still got a little bit of stiffness from the ones that are underneath it. And I like that. I think that helps keep it more weedless. But from a hookup percentage, I don't have nearly as much resistance up here because I've removed a lot of that material. So that's what I do with the weed guard. Shorten it, and I take some out based on what I'm fishing. From a skirt standpoint, you can see the hook shank is way up here. We've got easily an inch to an inch and a half hanging over the hook. I don't like that personally. I like to trim it so I've got about a ½ inch hanging below the bottom of the hook. Now this is a compact jig, so it's a smaller hook. It's not as long of a hook shank, which is why a full skirt tab material hangs a little bit lower. But I'm trying to make this a compact jig, so I'm going to cut a solid, 3/4 inch off that. So that's where I've got now. And usually what I'll do is I'll try to taper it a little bit then once I have it. I don't like it to be that perfect umbrella, super flat at the bottom. I like it to taper a little bit. So I'll spin the skirt and kind of get some of those outside ones to just give it a little bit more of a flare, so it's not just straight and then flat. It kind of tapers up to the head. To me, that looks much more natural. Okay, so that's what I've got now. I've got a much more compact jig. When you cut that extra material off, the bait will flare out a little bit. The last thing that I'm gonna do is take some of that inside material off. Like I said, it's a full tab. So you can see you've got your skirt collar, you've got some coming out the top, some coming out the bottom. I like to trim about half of that material off on this jig. So I literally go up to the collar, and I'm gonna cut a lot of that material off, that inside skirt material. And I do that for two reasons. One, I think it looks more realistic when your jig is not as thick and full. So that's our finished product. I think so it's not as full. Two, it allows the outside strands and the remaining strands more room to breathe, which means they're gonna undulate more. They're not hitting each other, they flow better, which again looks more realistic. It also speeds up the fall of a jig a little bit because it's not as bulky. And generally I like a little bit faster fall with the jig. If you want a slow fall, leave the skirt as thick as it can because it'll really slow that fall down of that jig. But those are the things that I do. The other thing I want to mention with the skirt is depending on what trailer you use, you want to make sure that the skirt is not hanging down into the tentacles of that trailer. If it's got any kicking motion to the trailer, if these skirt material pieces are hitting those flappers, it will limit the amount that bait flaps. So you want to make sure that whatever length you trim the skirt to, if you decide to do it, it does not interfere with the flapping motion of the bait. So that's what I do, guys. You can see that looked like a much more full-size jig when I started with it, and I've trimmed it down to really make it a good compact jig. You can fish them right out of the package, or you can alter it however you like. That's how I do it. I have a ton of success on this bait. So guys, give it a try. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned, new tips coming out every day.